I'm honored to be joined on Breakthrough News by rapper Macklemore. Macklemore, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm really excited to talk to you about the Encampments, this new feature film that you executive produced in collaboration with Breakthrough News and Watermelon Pictures. And it's in theaters starting today at the Angelica Theater in New York City. People can go get tickets right now for all upcoming shows at the-encampments.com. But before we get into that, I wanted to start with just a couple questions about your speech from last week over the weekend at the Free Mahmoud, Free Palestine event in New York City, which I had the privilege of witnessing in person. And I have to say, it was electrifying. It was very raw, honest, and I think deeply moving for the entire crowd. People can go actually watch the speech on our YouTube page at Breakthrough News. But you said something in your speech that really stuck with me, and I want to quote it. You said, "The light of Palestinian resistance, struggle, and unwavering faith cracked my heart open. I was experiencing what happens when the internal pain from being silent outweighs the risk of speaking up in moments of injustice. And once you see it, you can't unsee it." And then you spoke just about like the horrors of what's happening, but also about your political evolution and how this issue has radicalized you and how that shift has come with real consequences, especially since you're a public figure. So if you could just maybe talk about what pushed you to that moment and to speak out the way you have, and how has this journey changed you?
Oh, I don't know how you can watch what we have seen the last 18 months and not be moved. As a parent of three kids, um, I see my kids every day. I see my kids. I mean, I just posted something on my story of a young of a young girl crying over what I presume to be like a relative or a parent in a white sheet. And we've seen this for the last 18 months. I I don't I just see my 6-year-old. I see my 9-year-old. I see my 3-year-old. I see mothers and fathers. I see grandparents. I see human beings, Palestinian life that has been completely not only desecrated, but just not valued the same over and over and over again. And I was watching this, in October of 23, and you watch it for long enough a day, and it's like, how are we allowing this to happen? How are we funding this? How are we complicit in this? And what is our moral responsibility to step up in this moment? And particularly as an artist, and I was on tour at the time in the States, and it was one of those times in my life where I just had ample opportunity to research being on the road. I had ample opportunity to have conversations. And at a certain point, I was like, yeah, I said it in the speech, like that internal voice inside that's like, bro, how are you not saying anything right now? How are you going to fall back on your own privilege and your own comfort as an entire population is being genocided? And all it took was one other artist, Kaylani. I saw that she was saying something, and the ripples of that gave me the courage to be like, all right, this is time to step up.
Yeah, I hope people watching you who maybe haven't said anything yet will get some of that courage as well from hearing you speak out. And I remember back in I think it was the November 2023 rally for Palestine, and you kind of took everyone by surprise when you got on the mic. And one thing you said was, "They told me to do my research." Well, I did my research, and that's why I'm right on this. You also said something on Saturday that really struck a chord with me, and I think a lot of people as well, about how your heart has hardened over this last year and a half. And you said, and I'm quoting you, "I've wanted the world to wake up so desperately that a part of me has fallen asleep. I keep coming back to that question, how do we get people to care? I've been asking the wrong question. The question isn't how can we get people to care, it's how can we be of the utmost service to humanity." And then you talked about just kind of that general exhaustion from grief that we're all feeling, that sort of numbness that takes over, in addition to the outrage and how it can lead to a sort of paralysis. I mean, I have to say, like, hearing you say that the way you did really helped snap me out of that feeling, at least in that moment. So I'm just curious, since everyone's sort of in that feeling as we're in sort of genocide 2.0, how do you think we move through that helplessness, especially when we're in community, which is so important, and when we're not alone in this?
I think you said it. I think community is really important. Um, because the phone is a dark place. The phone is a dark place. I go to sleep, seeing footage coming out of Gaza. I wake up seeing footage coming out of Gaza. I watch moves that the Trump administration is making, or moves that Biden was making along the way. And I feel insane at times. And I realize that if I am in this cycle of constantly on the phone, of in kind of this silo of just focusing on this moment in Gaza, I actually can't be of the utmost service. Because I need to be tapped into my heart in order to move from a place of love and compassion and empathy. And it's this delicate balance, right? Because I'm definitely not turning the phone completely off. I don't want to become apathetic. I don't want to feel overwhelmed. And that's such a sentiment that I hear so often, is people being like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. We all feel that way. But but what I don't want to do is fall into like shoulder shrug, like we tried and this is beyond us. I don't think it's beyond us. I do think that this is a movement of the heart, that this is a movement of love, that this is a movement of getting off of your couch, getting into community, and being around those people that spark that flame of resistance. Because we are powerful in numbers. We have actual when we come together rooted in resistance, we can sway this, but we don't know our power. And they being the, Trump administration right now, is trying to suppress that power. And that's what the encampments is all about. And we're seeing it at Tufts yesterday. We're seeing it with Mahmoud. We're seeing it across the country, is they are instilling fear to let us know that your voice can be used against you. Peacefully protesting can and will be used against you, and we cannot succumb to that fear.
And since you mentioned the encampments, I want to talk to you a bit about that since it's coming out this week in theaters in the US and more showings to come. You're the executive producer of this film, which again, I'll mention you made in collaboration with Breakthrough News and Watermelon Pictures. And it focuses on the student protests against the genocide in Gaza and the crackdown against them. And people, again, can go find tickets and showings at the-encampments.com. So can you tell our audience, what is the encampments about and why is it so important right now?
The encampments is about the student-led protests at Columbia University in April of 2024, last year. And it really breaks down what this movement was all about, which is a movement rooted in students protesting, making demands against their university that is funding and complicit and invested in weapons that are used to kill Palestinian people. And very simple demands. Let's disclose the information, show where our investments are actually going, and divest. This is not complicated. This is again a movement that was rooted in love and resistance and against oppression, against genocide, against ethnic cleansing, and it got deemed something completely different. Um, you see weaponized terms like anti-Semitic being used, or hateful, or these quote unquote little Gazans disrupting this educational institution, when in actuality these are students that are really using their voice, their courage to mobilize and to rekindle the flame of a movement that at the time was really at this place of kind of a crossroads. A lot of us were feeling that burnout. We were feeling like, you know what, this isn't working. And what the students at Columbia did was simple. It was simple. It was, let's set up some tents in the lawn of our school and say we have had enough. And the Encampments film shows that story. It shows the story of Mahmoud. We're reminded of student-led protests in the 60s, of taking over Hamilton Hall, Hens Hall. We are reminded of what it looks like when people step up for the most marginalized and risk their educational merits, risk their degrees, risk deportation, like Mahmoud is. Mahmoud plays protagonist in the is a protagonist in the film in real life, and you see it dispels this notion of any sort of hate, any sort of terrorism, or any notion of anything that isn't literally human beings coming together and saying we cannot fund a genocide. Simple as that.
And then I wanted to ask you if you could also speak to why it's so important for people to actually go out and see this film in person. I mean, we all know how hard it is for a pro Palestine film to get real visibility, especially nationally. But when theaters see that people are showing up, that really matters. It helps the film travel, get picked up in more cities, reach the audience as it deserves.
Yeah, I mean, we want this film to be seen by as many people as possible. This is, film is a form of resistance. It's the truth. This is a film of the truth. And of course, there is going to be pushback. This is literally combating the narrative that we are seeing over and over and over again be thrown at us from the White House of anti-Semitic or of hateful protesters. Our freedom of speech is compromised right now, to say the least. It is being stripped away from us, and so human beings need to come out and support this film in theaters because then, as you said, we get more theaters. We want this to be nationwide, as many people to have access to this as possible, and show up. And when I first watched the film, um, I cried so many times. I left so inspired. I had goosebumps. It's the full spectrum of human emotion, and it really reconnected me to that moment in time that led me to write Hens Hall, that led so many of us to realize that the future of this country rests with the youth. It rests with truth telling. It rests with us telling our own stories of resistance and not letting any false depictions be at the forefront.
And lastly, Macklemore, I really appreciate your time. I just wanted to ask you about something you said in your speech on Saturday. You drew this thread from Gaza to what's happening around the world, from genocide to repression, and even to how the students' encampments were treated. And you called the genocide in Gaza the biggest threat to humanity we have ever faced. And you said, "I want my children to know that Palestinian liberation is our liberation. They are not separate." There's this deep truth in what you said that standing up for Palestine is about standing up for humanity because it won't just stay in Gaza. So I'm just curious as we wrap here, can you speak more to that connection and why this moment demands that kind of global collective response?
I believe in collective liberation. I believe that we are all intrinsically woven, that our spirits are dependent on one another, that if one person is oppressed, until that person is free, we will all be oppressed. I believe that it is our it is our privilege to help other people. That's the part of all of this. It's not like it's actually such a gift to care. It's such a gift to see one another as reflections of ourselves. And when we reflect light, when we reflect love, that is given back to us. And what the people of Palestine have given me, as I've said, is the greatest gift, which is reminding me of what truly matters in this life. And that is to feel heart, that is to see each other as one. And it's tough in our society to really believe that because we are not conditioned. We are conditioned to see lines. We are conditioned to see people as separate, to break off into different factions and protect ourselves and those that look like us or believe the same things. When in actuality, we are here to be of the utmost service, which is to love all human beings the same. And once you find that, that's the greatest gift, and that is what the last 18 months has given me in the midst of the most dire consequence of humanity that we have seen, that we are facing. It is given me this moment of looking at my own kids in a different way, looking at the kids that they go to school with in a different way, looking at the kids all over the world in a different way. These are all our brothers and sisters, and we must advocate, we must fight for liberation. Until then, we will not be free, any of us.
Well, Macklemore, I want to thank you so much for being here. Just a reminder, the-encampments.com for tickets to showings around the country. Thank you so much for all that you do.
Thanks, Rania.